Hey there, this is Linda Hill, and I'm reporting from Australia on things astrological and things lunar and things Sabian symbol. Wow. We have a big full moon coming up on Sunday in Australia. It's on Saturday in the United States. It actually happens at the exact same time. It's just that we in Australia are a day ahead of the United States in our dates. I always feel I have to mention that because there's often people asking me those questions. So yes, this is a big full moon. It's a big full moon because, Neptune is so involved in it. It's a Pisces new moon, and Neptune is so involved in it. It's so involved in so many ways. The Sabian symbol for this full moon is the 7th degree of Pisces. Now, for those of you who may not know about the Sabian symbols, you always have to add one in order to get the accurate Sabian symbol. So in the case of the full moon, the moon is at 6 degrees and 6 minutes of Pisces, and that means it's Pisces 7 in the Sabian symbol. So I'm not getting it wrong every time I say what the Sabian symbols are. You always add one. That's the way that you get the accurate Sabian symbol. So yeah, so this particular full moon has the moon in Pisces conjunct Neptune in Pisces, of course. So here we have an extremely Piscean mix, and it's and it could be rather swampy, especially when we factor in the Sabian symbol of the moon, the full moon. The Sabian symbol is Pisces 7. It's illuminated by a shaft of light across lies on rocks surrounded by sea and mist. And this can be a very difficult Sabian symbol. Now, there's always good things because every Sabian symbol has the good and the not so good and the downright yeah. And we've got to be able to have all of the shades between white and black and all the grey in between in a symbol. That's what I think a lot of people don't really get, There's so many shades in a Sabian symbol. There has to be, or else, we wouldn't have the whole of the world out there with the 360 Sabian symbols, describing the totality of our experience and the things that go on. So this Sabian symbol is like illuminated by a shaft of light across lies on rocks surrounded by sea and mist. And this can be a really hard one because it can bring us up hard against reality, where we go, whoa, I've been sailing along and things have been good, or things have been not so good, or things have been horrendous, but now it's sort of like hitting the rocks, and there's many ways that we can do that. I mean, there's ways that are really salvation, and there's ways that are really complicated and difficult. I quite often mention Princess Diana in her chart when these degrees come up that are highlighted in her chart, because she was such an archetypal being, and that was the degree of her Chiron. And her mother-in-law, Queen Elizabeth II, was the head of the, well, still is the head of the Church of England. She's the head of the Church of England, and so here was Princess Diana's Chiron on the cross lying on rocks surrounded by sea and mist, and she had those misplaced loyalties and misplaced judgments, and she was wrecked. She got wrecked. In whatever way it happened, she still got wrecked. And the degree that was exactly opposite Princess Diana's Chiron was Pluto on the harem degree, and she ended up with, all the talk was that she was engaged to Dodi Fayed. Interesting that his name was D-O-D-I and hers shortened was D.I. Yeah, and he gave her a huge diamond ring, and they were engaged, and he was an Egyptian playboy, hence the harem. Her Pluto was on the harem, and she was in the harem of the British, I was going to say aristocracy. Well, yeah, that'll do. The royal family, So anyway, so that's a bit, that's drawing a bit of a bow in there to show how that, all of that can manifest. But there's 100 other ways that it can manifest. And I don't know, I think this full moon, maybe we'll see Princess Diana in the news again. Who knows? I don't know. But anyway, it's not important whether we do or we don't. That's just a side note. It can be. I mean, the sun, I'm going to come to the sun now in the chart of the full moon. The sun is exactly opposite the moon when we have a full moon. That's just an isness, and that's how we get a full moon, with the sun reflected off the moon, in its totality. And so the sun is on the harem degree. It's the 7th degree of Virgo. And there can be a feeling with this that we're sacrificing ourselves in some measure, and some people aren't doing it very much, and they're quite happy with the results, of course. But the harem can really have us feeling like we really don't get picked very often. We're the ones on the sideline. We're the ones where we go, oh, maybe it's my turn now, and you go, oh no, not really. There's other really good things with the harem, of course. There's, sorry to keep saying of course, it's just that I don't want to give the impression that there's necessarily negative components to this, because it's all very subjective. It's all really about how you're dealing, or people around you. I mean, you could be having the best time of your life. You could be having the best time of your life. So, and certainly, the full moon chart's not going to tell us whether you are or you aren't. That's in your consciousness. That's in your reality. It's very interesting, though, to look at these symbols and take them for how they're coming about. The harem degree could be signaling that at this full moon, it's fantastic to get together with women's groups, to get those women around you. It could include men. There's no reason why there can't be men in the harem. In fact, there are men in the harem. But there's a whole story around that. Often the men that are really in the harem, they can be, well, that's the old story, emasculated. They were castrated. But anyway, that's another story. And of course, there's the Grand Poobah, tends to be the man in the harem. But I think that we need to rewrite that story nowadays for our own, common usage nowadays. It's sort of like, well, it doesn't have to be that the man's always the Grand Poobah. In fact, a lot of very savvy women, can be getting together their own groups that include both men and women. Sometimes, not always. Sometimes we just want to have a women's group. But we can be the Grand Poobah. I think that's the message I'm getting across here. And it's one where sometimes we just wait and wait and wait. With a full moon in Pisces, it can be really about waiting and sacrifice and loss and isolation. All of these issues can come up. We've had Chiron in Pisces forever. We've got Neptune in Pisces. It's all very like Piscean, and there can be the feeling of being swamped or being left on the beach on the rocks and not sure, how to get home. There can be with this degree. And of course, a really good thing to do with the illuminated by a shaft of light, a large cross lies on rock surrounded by sea and mist, is to come to the aid of someone else. And we don't want to be doing that too much, because we don't want to be sacrificing our own needs too much at the full moon, because that can get a bit out of hand. But, by reaching out to others who need help and saying, hey, do you want to talk on the phone, or, do you want a cup of tea or coffee? Let's meet, whatever it happens to be. Sometimes it's that we notice around us. It doesn't have to be us that are dashed on the rocks. It doesn't have to be. But there's probably, a certain percentage of our lives where we go, yeah, I have misplaced my loyalties. I have wasted a lot of time. I have, laid on the rocks and gone, oh my, poor me, which is a very moon in Pisces conjunct Neptune thing. Moon in Pisces conjunct Neptune, it's dreams, it's spirituality, it's the wonderful things in life. It's being artistic, it's being musical, it's being rhythmic, it's being joyful. And on the other hand, there's always the other hand, because that's what makes life go round. There can be the feeling of having done too much, being tired, being worn out, not being listened to, being a scapegoat, feeling like no one's really taking any notice of you or others, Sometimes we can take up the gauntlet and go, charging off for someone else's rights, and that can be part of this as well, certainly. But I think that, we can really look at that. And a lot of this stuff that I'm feeling at the moment that a lot of us are going through is that we're really looking to the future a lot more, not so much the future, like today is the future anyway, isn't it? Like this next minute. But what am I getting at here? Like Mercury's in Libra, and so is the North Node, and they're both on the Super Galactic Center, and so is Lilith for that, so if we want to talk about the release of the female, Lilith is there. It's interesting, though, talking about the release of the female. I'm going to come to Lilith. I don't always talk about Lilith, but I always look at it. Lilith is the one, she was kicked out of the Garden of Eden. She was kicked out because she wouldn't submit to Adam. And so Adam made Eve out of his ribs, so it goes. And, and then everybody had belly buttons. But Lilith wouldn't submit. Lilith is a dark woman. Lilith is the one who says, no, I'm a powerful woman. And I think, I don't think she destroys babies and, eats babies and causes men to have terrible nighttime ejaculations and causing them nightmares, as the part of the patriarchy will have us believe. I think Lilith is a stand-up woman who goes, no, it's all right, I'll take control, I'll do it. I'm a strong woman. Or in this instance, I won't. I'll let someone else do it. There's nothing wrong with Lilith doing that either, because the woman does not always have to do the thing. And I think this moon in Pisces can be a bit about that. It's like, do we always have to step up? I mean, really? And do we always expect the man to step up? As well. Blah. Yes. My brain rushes too fast for my speaking equipment. So, ST, cheers. My Celestial Seasonings mug, which I've used for years and years, these mugs. Nothing like a cup of tea. And there's nothing like a pause either. I mean, this is such a huge full moon, because we've got Jupiter involved as well. But anyway, I want to come back to the Super Galactic Center. I really think that the Super Galactic Center, says so much more about what's going on. Now, there's the Galactic Center in Sagittarius that a lot of people talk about now. And there's the Super Galactic Center in Libra that hardly anybody ever mentions and hardly anybody ever has ever mentioned. And the reason I got onto it was, first off, I had quite a long relationship with, an amazing and wonderful and deep relationship with Philip Sedgwick. And he... his genius is beyond belief, and his legacy to astrology is quite extraordinary. Anyway, he says about the Super Galactic Center that it's there, it's huge, and it's full of, I don't know what he says, but it's about pulsars and quasars and all these sort of things. He does all that. I do this side of the story, and yeah, so the Super Galactic Center. I first noticed the Super Galactic Center from Philip mentioning it. But then, when I looked at it, I went, oh my God, there's a lot of symbols that really reflect the Galactic Center in Sagittarius. Now, please do remember that the Sabian symbols were got completely at random. Elsie Wheeler didn't sit there and go Aries 1, Aries 2, Aries 3. It didn't happen like that at all. It was completely at random. So it's amazing that the Galactic Center has, the 27th degree of Sagittarius has... a sculptor's vision is slowly but surely taking form, and the Super Galactic Center has a man watches his ideals taking a concrete form before his inner vision, and that's Libra 6. And this I find to be absolutely extraordinary. But anyway, besides which, where they say that the Super Galactic Center is exact is on the second degree of, I think. Oh, now I'm going back. No, I think it's the third degree of Libra, Libra 3. I think it's 2+, but it doesn't matter. It's splitting hairs because the thing has an orb. And the orb, I think, for the Super Galactic Center is quite wide. And why I say that is because the Sabian symbols that sandwich the Super Galactic Center are really quite extraordinary. Going into it, I believe, starts with Virgo 29, which is 28+ in the zodiac. And that Sabian symbol is a man gaining secret knowledge from an ancient scroll he is reading or holding. Either wording works. And then the next degree on, Virgo 30, is a man with urgent tasks to complete, does not look to any distractions. And then we go to Libra 1, and we've got a butterfly shot through with a dart, and that can be where we go, whoosh, where are we stuck? Where are we pinned? Leonard Cohen sings that in his song Marianne, or no, I can't remember which one it is, but he says, I can see where you're pinned. And, I often think of his quote, even though I can't remember what song it's from, even though I'm a huge Leonard Cohen fan. It's like, I can see where you're pinned. It's sort of like if we have to go, that's the goal of the North Node. And indeed, Mercury these last few days as well, although Mercury will move on, but Mercury does go retrograde, and that's going to be a whole different story. But we have the butterfly shot through with a dart of Libra 1, and then we have Libra 2, which is the light of the 6th race transmuted to the 7th, which is where the moon's north node is right now and is on the full moon. And just going to have a little bit of a look here. I know all this, but sometimes I need to refresh my mind. Yes. Right through September, we've got it on Libra 2, the moon's north node, and then it, So it's going retrograde and direct throughout September. September is a very big month. Now, many people have said from different sources and for different reasons that, you know, September is very much about having an ascension in consciousness, you know, rising up in consciousness. Now, I find this to be extraordinary. And I must say that last month I actually have a few days where I was going, oh my God, this is bizarre. You know, because I did explain in my new moon, Leo new moon video, which was the first one I did of this type of daily raves, as I call them. You know, it's oh, where was I going? The Super Galactic Center. Yes. So, oh no, I've lost my thread. Doesn't matter. The Super Galactic Center is where we're meant to create our own reality. That's what it's about. It's where we connect in with the mind of God. And I said I do this all by my, you know, in my mind. And then I went to look where Mercury goes retrograde, but I'll get that later. That's probably what put me off. Mercury retrograde. I know it's coming. I haven't paid any attention whatsoever. So, so the light of the sixth race transmuted to the seventh is the degree of the North Node during most of September. It only goes off it for a few days, and it doesn't matter. Even if it does go off it, it doesn't matter because that's the thing that's being broadcast. Really big is the light of the sixth race transmuted to the seventh, and so it talks about an ascension in consciousness where we go from, you know, a communicating, thinking, being at this level to go to this level, and that's where I've just seen it everywhere. I've seen people talking about September as being this gateway to another level of consciousness, and excuse me. That might have been where I was going before, because I used to sort of go, oh, yeah, right, okay, fair enough, sounds great. You know, because I'm one of those women that goes, or should I say women, astrologer or people who tends to go, yeah, right, ascension in consciousness, yeah, groovy, you know. And it's like, but, you know, I can't ignore this stuff. This is really my own lunchbox. And I'm finding this to be absolutely amazing. And so in the lead up, you know, to the new moon, in the next couple of days, Mercury is on the North Node. And so that's really talking about, you know, taking us into that future and really connecting us to that destiny and really connecting us to those possibilities. And it's on the light of the sixth race transmuted to the seventh. You know, it's the seeds from the past that are, you know, moving us forward into the future and taking us onto a whole new level of understanding. Part of that understanding will come about through the agency of Jupiter. Now, you know, Jupiter's going to move on. It's going to do all sorts of things. It's in, you know, Virgo this whole month, you know, this next month, this month of full moon. But, you know, it's like Jupiter on the full moon is on the black and white children playing happily together. And I think that, you know, that's one of the messages. And it's a message, you know, that I think, you know, it's generally out there in humanity. You know, it's that accepting everybody and loving everybody and being good with everybody and allowing everybody to have their own say. Like, we're having this huge argument in Australia about gay marriage, you know, equal rights. I mean, it's, you know, people saying, you know, that they want to have a vote on equal rights when they're straight, and they go to church and they don't believe in it. It's sort of like, well, that's not your place, you know, it's not your story. And so it's a very interesting one. I feel very strongly about all of that. Equal rights, you know, colour that rainbow chalk on the thing, you know, all my gay brothers and sisters, you know, it's, you know, you have every right to get married or to call it marriage or to call it anything you want. You can jump on one leg for all I care. And if you're happy with that, then that's fabulous. If you know what I mean, I do care. But, you know, anyway, so Jupiter is on the black and white children playing happily together. And of course, this is about race consciousness. Of course, it's about race, you know, difficulties or eases or people going, oh, I get it. Yeah, if I just let go of judging everybody else, which I've got to do a bit of that myself. I mean, I'm not, you know, out of the woods myself. We're all human, you know, but there's this, you know, the time when we sort of go, oh, is that really a good idea, the way I said that or thought that? You know, am I really doing any favors to myself or to others through, you know, my thoughts? It can be a very interesting thing. So Jupiter is on the 4th degree of Virgo on the black and white children playing happily together. The Sun is on the 7th degree of Virgo on the harem degree. Now, Jupiter very soon after the full moon moves on to the next degree, and the next degree is a man dreaming of fairies and normally unseen spiritual energies, or you know, nature spirits. You know, it's about leprechauns and nature spirits. I often think of Ireland when I think of this degree. I think it's in their chart. So it's sort of like, there is definitely feels like an ascension in consciousness, even just from that Jupiter degree. A man dreaming of fairies and normally unseen spiritual energies. It's like we'll wake up and we'll say, wow, the dream I had last night. Or the waking dream, you can have when you're driving your car and suddenly you get this premonition, or you see something you normally don't see. It can be really fabulous. And so Jupiter is involved with the sun. And so it's a very interesting one because Jupiter and the sun together in Virgo can have that I'm going to take this a bit to extremes, and I think you can dig amongst it, but it's like, oh, aren't I fabulous? Aren't I doing so well? And why shouldn't we think that? We are all fabulous. Everybody's fabulous, but, aren't I doing well? Aren't I succeeding? I'm going to push for this. I'm going to really put my guts into this. My solar center is really turned on. I want to travel. I want to mix with foreign peoples. I want to expand my consciousness. I want to expand my, my life. I want to make more money. It's all of that stuff. Jupiter, Sun, it's experiences, opportunities, abundance. It can be putting on weight, especially with what's going on with Neptune. It's which is opposite. So, it's got a lot to do with, hey, I'm here, I'm going to make a difference, And, of course, the sun is ahead of Jupiter at the moment. It wasn't just a few days ago. It was on the 2 guardian angels bringing protection. And that's very much what this current Sun-Jupiter cycle is about, which lasts for 12 years. I mean, it's not like the 2 guardian angels are always going to be there to protect us in that huge measure. But if we believe that they are, hello, that's what happens, So if we go, the 2 guardian angels bringing protection, you could write it up on a thing and put it up on your wall. 2 guardian angels bringing protection, the sun and Jupiter, You didn't bring Venus in there for some measure. But anyway, so, of course, Venus is retrograde at the moment, so it's got a different story, but that's okay. It's all right, I think. So anyway, so we've got Jupiter and the sun on one hand, and we've got Neptune and the moon on the other, and they're exactly opposite each other. So that's a little bit of an interesting one, because the Neptune and the moon can be, well, I want to put myself first, but, I really shouldn't because, I should be self-effacing. I shouldn't talk about me. Ego's a dirty word. I've got to let go of all that stuff, And Moon Neptune can be, oh, but what about them? I've got to, help them. And, of course, there's that. Of course, there's helping others. But there's also, can be a very strong focus on what are your plans? What are your beliefs? What are your desires? And, so many of us put aside, our own feelings. Like I know for myself, if I'm a bit late getting a reading in, I'll wake up at 3 in the morning thinking about it. Well, I'm just using that as an example. I don't do it all the time, and I'm not often late for readings. But, it's sort of like, it's sort of like, wow, your whole life can be driven by these societal expectations. And I think that that's what the large cross line on rock surrounded by sea and mist is largely saying, like, don't stay with the expectations of society. What is that all about? It's like we have to let go of a lot of that. I do this out of my head, but every now and then I have to get the book out. I do have them all memorized, but when I talk so fast, my brain leaks a little bit. So, yeah, and it's going to be interesting because there's going to be a little bit about, I think there's going to be a bit about the military war. I mean, that's always around. The boys with their toys, they love war. They love to get it out there. They love smashing people and destroying people's lives and making a lot of money. Anyway, excuse me, but I do have that type of mindset. And so the degree before the moon is a parade of army officers in full dress. Now, this does not just talk about the military and the desire of many people to bomb the hell out of Iran, which is an abomination, excuse the expression, but really, for goodness sake, how disgusting. But anyway, a parade of army officers in full dress can have us. That's the karmic condition of the moon. It's the degree before the moon. It can have us turning up in our uniforms. It can be like me going, well, I'm going to turn up and do a Facebook thing or a YouTube thing, and I better do this and I better do that, and we do. It's our job. It's our job to put on our uniform and go to work and do our thing. But at times, sometimes we put on the full army dress, and we forget, sometimes, not all the time, and we forget about what we maybe want to do. I mean, I have readings quite often with people who really want to follow a spiritual path, and they're working, they're working in a bakery behind the counter, or even, at the back where they don't even see anybody, or, like a Chinese laundry type of situation. They're working in the bank, they're not doing what they want to be doing, And so we have to look at that to a certain degree. Are we following our spiritual path and what we really want to be doing? Because the North Node going over the Super Galactic Center and Mercury at the moment, and for goodness sake, Lilith, who is stuck like a dart. You know, she really is stuck. That may be where I got stuck before. You know, she really is quite stuck by that dart at the moment. But Lilith is then going to go over the light of the 6 rays transmitted to the 7th, and Lilith is going to meet with the North Node. Lilith has already met with Mercury. And so I think that's fabulous. And, you know, and men have Liliths too. It's not just about the feminine, you know, but it's about the feminine principle, but it's not just about females and males. And, you know, that gets a bit boring, that argument, because I think, you know, people are just people. Let's just be people. And to do our best, you know, is surely the aim. And with awareness. It's not always present, of course. Where was I? Oh, that's the moon. Yeah, so the moon, the degree following, the karmic condition, or the degree before the moon. Now, I see the karmic condition as being something like the moon's south node. I made that up. Totally. I remember one day when I was driving along my car, this is years ago, and I was driving along my car, and the whole thing fell into me, being interested in the 360 degrees. More than most astrologers, because most astrologers don't go, oh, they're, you know, like ding, 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 right around the 360 degrees. You know, I was sitting in my car and I went, oh my God, the North Node teaches us the zodiac backwards. And I think that's really great. So we're learning the lessons of the Sabian symbols in a backwards fashion. I think it's that way when I'm doing it back to front. Anyway, so, because the nodes do go forward, but they take us backwards through the zodiac. There's something there to be said about all that, I'm not sure. But anyway, so the moon is illuminated by a shaft of light, a large cross lies on rocks surrounded by sea and mist. And I did have to look this one up. Oh, that's right. The degree following the moon is a girl blowing a bugle. And that might be why I went off this morning on Facebook about people spelling my name with an I instead of a Y, even though they've known me for many years. They still spell it Linda, even though it's written there in my email and that. So anyway, I'm not doing that to have a big rant about my name, even though it probably sounds like I am. It's actually more about having a rant, or to show you about having a rant. You know, a girl blowing a bugle can be, oh, for God's sake, let's wake up for a male malaise, you know. And we're going to have, you know, there's going to be announcements left, right and center, whether it's Donald Trump or Obama or, you know, our Tony Abbott. I'll pause there for effect. But, you know, whoever it is in England or whatever. Cameron, is he still there? Oh, God. But anyway, it's sort of, you know, it's that there will be announcements. There'll be big announcements, and some of them might have to do with sacrifice and loss. The girl blowing a bugle can bring about many things, but on a personal level, it's often got to do with, we need to have a voice to say things that bother us, or that we want to wake up from, or we want to see other people waking up from. It can be interesting because the moon's conjunct Neptune, and the girl blowing a bugle is the karmic condition, the degree before, of the current Neptune placement. And so, you know, it can be, well, did we hear the bugle call? I'm not really sure. You see, because Neptune is on the next degree, which is Pisces 9, which is the race begins, intent on outdistancing his rivals. A jockey spurs his horse on to great speed. And so that, you know, that can be very, like the bugle is like, da, da, da. Remembering these things came about completely at random by Elsie Wheeler and Mark Edmund Jones in 1925. They did not start at Aries 1 and do the whole thing. It was blind, right, you know, double blind, completely random, and they were just put wherever, the Sabian symbols. So that sort of stuff, you know, continues to blow my mind. So it's interesting that the girl blowing the bugle is right before the, you know, the horse race takes off. It's sort of like, wow, you know, we're off and running, off and running, cavalry. You know, and some of us really might feel like we're in the race, and we're not really in the race. Are we really in the race? Do we hear the bugle call? Are we going? You know, and it can be, well, I'm not really sure. I'm not really sure whether I can get out in front of the pack. You know, maybe I need to hang back a bit, not put on my best effort. That can be a thing with Moon and Neptune in Pisces on those degrees. The bugle call can, you know, come from us. It can come from others. And we might be half asleep. That's part of the thing about this thing. And half asleep can be a very spiritual, liminal sort of place, you know, which really brings us to a great understanding of what's going on in our conscious life, you know. So there's nothing, you know, there's nothing wrong with that liminal place when we feel like we're a bit asleep. And it's very useful, except when there's a going, which might be, you know, the bank ringing. That can be the bugle, you know, like the lawyer ringing, or or you having to ring the lawyer. But it doesn't have to do with lawyers, although I've seen a lot of lawyer activity going on over this last month. You know, Saturn has been, and still is, on the 29th degree of Scorpio, which is the Indian woman pleading to the chief for the lives of her children. And it's very much about, it's also, I mean, it's obviously about mothers and their children, but it's all, and fathers and their children. And it's also about, you know, pleading to the chief, and it's also about legal advocacy. You know, it's standing up for others, and I see it as a bit of what I do. You know, so somebody comes to me a reading, you know, I read between the lines from what the planets are saying, you know, in their transits and progressions and all those sort of things, and my impressions of what needs to be, you know, gotten over. And there's somehow this, you know, it's my sun degree, so it's been interesting having Saturn on my sun. And I've been hearing a lot of talk about family law courts and custody battles and family violence. In fact, my daughter is a finalist in 2 extremely prestigious Walkley Awards, journalist awards, for writing 2 pieces about family violence. Journalist awards are huge in Australia. It's the biggest journalist award in Australia. It only happens once a year, and here she is as a finalist with that. So I mentioned that because she wasn't consciously aware of the fact that Saturn was on the family law court degree and the family violence degree, and she, you know, a few times she was messaging me very quietly from the family law court, not realizing that I have, you know, she didn't know all that. So I just find that to be fascinating and amazing. You know, it comes right in your face at times. You know, it's like, wow, Saturn on the what is it? I do know, it's my sun degree. A woman pleading to the chief for the lives of her children. Saturn's going to move off that degree soon. It's going to go on to the Halloween trickster degree. It's the Halloween, the children in Halloween masks performing various pranks. And it's sort of like, wow, okay, where do we go with this? You know, the pranks, we've been led astray, other witnesses. In my own life, I see that as I like to add a bit of humor. I pull faces, you know, I do like humor. I think everything can be a bit deadpan, and I think that's how it comes about in me. But, you know, when you got Saturn in Scorpio and the last degree of Scorpio, it might not be that much fun in terms of outward manifestations of Saturn, you know, and might be where it's teaching us to laugh at everything. I think we need to do that anyway. I don't mean laugh at everything. That would be flippant and stupid. But, you know, to be going, oh, wow, okay, that's happened. Well, I can see the lightness, the levity. I'll use brevity in my levity, and, you know, and not worry about that too much. You know, it's what we have to do, really. You know, and also the South Node in transiting South Node is on the 2nd degree of Aries, and that Sabian symbol is a comedian entertaining a group of friends. You know, we're meant to be going, okay, I can see the foibles in human nature. I can see, you know, what we might, you know, be able to take away from this in terms of fun, or seeing how human nature really plays itself out. You know, we can have a bit of a laugh. We can have a bit of a cry too, because there's always a bit of crying that goes on with the comedian entertaining the group. You know, we might be sitting there going, oh my God, oh my God, did he just say something that is so relevant to my life I can barely stand it. You know, it can be like that. Doesn't have to be, but it can be. And so, yeah, we're experiencing a lot of really interesting things. And, you know, Mercury on the full moon is it's on Libra 3, which is the dawn of a new day revealing everything changed. I didn't go right through the Super Galactic Center. I'll come back to that. So the dawn of a new day revealing everything changes the 3rd degree of Libra, and it's still the Super Galactic Center. So we've got the North Node on the 2nd degree of Libra, and we've got Mercury on the 3rd degree of Libra. And the North Node is the, you know, the light of the 6th rays transmuted to the 7th, and Mercury's on the dawning of a new day revealing everything changed. And so, you know, we can just wake up like that. I had something very strange happen to me in February. It was the end of January, and I just woke up. I mean, I know I've got a lot to go yet. You know, I'm not nowhere near awakened, but I certainly am a lot more awakened than I was. It's just like, wow, something just happened. It was like a switch was flicked, and I don't worry about stuff anymore. I have the odd rant because I'm a human being, but you know, in general, it's just like, wow, life feels very different. Even though my life is not that different. I don't lie awake worrying about stuff, none of that. And so I think we can do that just like that. And I'm only using that example to show you how Mercury's on the dawn of a new day reveals everything changed. It certainly has done that for me for different reasons, but reasons enough. So, yeah, so how cool is this? It really is very cool that we've got the North Node going over the Super Galactic Center at the same time as Mercury going over, at the same time that we have the Sun going over it. And we'll have, well, the Sun's not going over for a month, but this Super Galactic Center activity doesn't last just through September. I should make that clear. It goes right up to like the end of the first week in December. Oh, and if you want to extend it out, you could even take it out straight out to, Christmas. But yeah, at the end of the first week in December is when we basically, we're finished with the North Node on the Super Galactic Center. And that's given us about 6 months. About 6 months on the Super Galactic Center, which is extraordinary. We don't, and I really do see the Super Galactic Center sandwiched between the 29th, that means Virgo, 28 degrees of Virgo, and the 7th degree of Libra. Now, I've mentioned the 3rd degree of Libra is the dawning of a new day, revealing everything changed. When we go to the next degree, Libra 4, it's the group of young people sitting in spiritual communion around a campfire. And the campfire can be the internet, it can be your beliefs, it can be all sorts of things, but it's gathering together with like-minded souls around something that inspirits the group or inspirits you. You can be doing it by yourself. We really can, but I mean, it's really good to have that feeling of support. And of course, when we're realizing that a lot of people are, ascending in consciousness, we don't feel so alone. It's a wonderful thing. And so the degree following that is Libra 5, and that Sabian symbol is a man teaching the true inner knowledge of the new world to his students. It's just fabulous. And there's been a whole bunch of, I think, of amazing teachings coming in from various people. And then Libra 6 is the a man watches his ideals taking a concrete form before his inner vision. And I think that it basically forms, from Virgo 28 to Libra 6, that basically forms that span of orb of the Super Galactic Center. It's just amazing. The things that were coming through to me from the North Node being on the man teaching the true inner knowledge of the new world to his students, and there was many times when I didn't share. I know I should more. Well, I mean, I shouldn't shoot on myself either. Well, I know that I could. Well, there's a could word. I know that there's a possibility of sharing more. But, sometimes I go, no, I'm going to do my own thing. I've got too much to do, or I'll let that slide. But, if I had some sort of automated thing that showed you the Sabian symbols all the time, it would absolutely blow your mind. I think so anyway. It does with me. Sometimes I just go, well, I'm just going to soak it up for myself at the moment, extraordinary. And I have been going through so many changes. And my father died, and I had a surgery, and then my auntie died last weekend, and it's like, and then we had to put our cap down the day after my father's funeral. So, it's just, it's like, it's been one of those experiences, and I know I'm not alone. But, at the same time, I have not been sitting around feeling sorry for myself, which I probably would have in earlier times, like, whoa. But, it's sort of, each day is such an adventure, whether you've got money or not, whether you've got love in your life or not, whether you've got, whatever you've got in your life, life is just so amazing. Anyway, I don't mean to proselytize. That's not who I am. I don't do that. But it's just, I am feeling the joy of all that. So, yeah, so Venus and Mars are meeting up on the 1st of September. So very soon after, am I doing the right thing? I don't know. I can't see the video here because I haven't got it showing. So the Mars and Venus meet up on the 1st degree, and I'll have to look that degree up. I do know it. I think it's the street bazaar, the street parade. Yes, it's a street pageant moving along a street packed with people, and this can be Mardi Gras and street parades, and it can be going down the street to have a coffee and bumping into people, and then going to the supermarket, you see more people, and it can be where we get out in the street, and it's sort of like, wow, where we meet people on the street. It can be in a restaurant. It doesn't matter. It's male and female too. It's Mars, it's Venus. It's also us really accessing our sense of can do, like Venus and Mars meeting up in the middle of Leo. I mean, what could be sunnier than that? I think this last new moon was a very sunny one as well. The new moon in Leo. Many difficult things came out of that period, but it just was such a sunny sunny new moon. So we're having a sunny experience still with Venus and Mars meeting up on the 14th degree, on the 15th degree of Leo. But, you know, for the full moon, Venus is on brilliant sunshine just after a storm. I haven't even thought about that. It's brilliant sunshine just after a storm, and that is the 16th degree of Leo. And so this can be where we go, oh, breathe out. It's okay. The sun's coming out. You know, whether you're going into winter or going into, you know, or going into autumn or going into spring, as we are here in the southern hemisphere, thank God. The brilliant sunshine after a storm can bring many wonderful benefits and things to us, regardless of where we are in terms of our seasons. You know, it's like the sun is going to come out, you know, after we've trudged through some difficult thing. It's very interesting because we might be not listening to messages that are coming through, though, because Mars on the full moon is on Leo 14, and that is the cherub. Leo 14 Mars. It is cherub-like. A human soul whispers into every receptive ear, seeking to manifest. And this can be like, oh, are you hearing the messages that are coming through for you? Are you open to those? And I reckon that Venus coming right up to that. I don't think it gets right to it. I think it goes direct the degree before that. Yeah, but that doesn't matter. It's splitting hairs. Venus gets right up to and almost on, you know, the cherub-like human soul whispers into every receptive ear, seeking to manifest. And so I love this degree a great deal. But when it's our Mars, it can be like, oh, what's that in my ear? Is it a cricket? You know, have I got a fly in my ear? You know, am I going deaf? Are people screaming in this ear but not in this ear? Or messages screaming in both ears? You know, it can have us wondering whether the messages that are coming through are really useful, because it is our Mars, but Venus is going to be there as well. And it's splitting hairs to say it doesn't get right back to that degree, because it doesn't. It gets back short of it. Less than half a degree before it gets to the cherub-like degree, Venus goes direct. Anyway, so won't it be good when Venus goes direct? I have a feeling that a lot of us are going to go, okay, I learned some lessons there, and that was an interesting 40 days and 40 nights, but we've sort of got a really clear... when does that happen? I do know, but it's about the 9th or the 10th of October, we clear the shadow period of Venus. What I mean by that is it goes direct on the 6th, but it takes a whole nother month and a bit for Venus to clear where it was going over before. And where it was going over before is a really interesting one. You know, I urge you to take a look at some of those Sabian symbols if you're up for it. It went retrograde on the 1st degree of Virgo. In a portrait, the best of a man's traits or character are idealized. And then it went back into Leo, onto the unsealed letter that reveals vital and confidential information. You know, what is it that you wanted to say? What is it that you did say? What is it you maybe shouldn't have said? You know, and then it goes back onto, and then it went back onto, it's already done this, but it's going to go over these degrees again. The mermaid that's climbed ashore to the bleak rocky coast, she awaits the prince who will bring her immortality, which can really talk about us, you know, waiting for the mate to come into our lives who's really going to change our life. Being sure that there's some twin flame or soulmate that's out there, you know, it can be all of that. And that can be true, and of course there can be. But the thing is that this Venus retrograde, you know, can be saying, well, think twice about that, you know. Maybe it's time to be alone a little bit in your Leo-ness, you know, in your Leo heart, you know, to be alone a little bit. And then it went over all sorts of degrees, which is so fascinating. It's not funny. So it's all fascinating. So Venus is going to go direct. That's going to be part of the outgrowth of this full moon. Thank God for that. I mean, it's been challenging. Well, it just feels like you go, well, I want to buy a new thing, you know, I want to buy something, this is not me, but, you know, I want to buy something new, or I want to get married, or I want to, you know, take another lease on a new house, or I don't know, you know, and we might go, oh, Venus is retrograde, you know, and it might have us second guessing ourselves, I don't know, but anyway, I meant to have a sip of that. Second guessing ourselves. You see, Uranus has been in Aries, well, it is in Aries, and on the full moon, it's on the boxer entering the ring. It's been on this degree for months. The boxer entering the ring. It's like, are we ready to step up to the ring? It's stepping up to the plate and taking on the fight. It doesn't always have to be a fight. It's often not a fight. It's taking something on. Uranus on the boxer entering the ring says, step up to the plate. What are you ready for? What do you want? And so Uranus goes retrograde on that 21st degree of Aries. Well, it has gone retrograde. So, and it doesn't get to Aries 22, which is the gate to the garden of all fulfilled desire, which is what the stepping up to the plate is all about, because then we step through the gate. I always see those two as a binary, as a thing together, Aries 21 and Aries 22. Fabulous degrees. We don't want to take on too much, though, because we can find ourselves carrying a heavy load, a very heavy load. So, but we do want to step up to the plate. You know, it's sort of like going, yeah, damn it, I'm ready for it. You know, I'm ready to do it. I'm ready to launch my whatever. I'm ready to, you know, have this relationship. I'm ready to, you know, take on the world. I'm ready to, you know, even if it's launching a website, you know, it's stepping up to the plate. You know, the boxer entering the ring. I've seen so many references to boxing the last few months. That's pretty standard, though. When planets go over these, you know, these degrees, these Sabian symbols, I see the Sabian symbols in the media. I see them on front page, you know, headlines. I see them in the stories. I see them on the TV. I see them in movies I watch. Many times, I don't tend to do it so much anymore because I've done it so many times, although there is the odd time I certainly will do it. You know, when I start watching a movie, sometimes I'll cast a chart for that exact moment I started watching the movie, and the Sabian symbol will tell the story in the movie. Now, how that works, I have no idea, because I'm sitting there in my own reality, in another world, you know, and the Sabian symbols are telling the plot of the movie, as well as the plot of what's going on with me. Very interesting stuff. Anyway, you know, in amongst all of this, there's so many people are finding it rather difficult to put food on the table. I know that's not all of us. Some of us are blessed. I find myself a little bit at that edge now and then, especially with all the, you know, all the overheads we have. Just running my website costs, you know, people don't understand. They think it must cost $330 to set it up, and then nothing. So it's very peculiar how, well, not peculiar, it's just the way we've set things up. But, you know, like every month there's the phone, there's the internet, there's the thing, you know, the gas, the electricity, the rent, the mortgage, you know, the credit card payments. And so it's all really big, you know, and we have to deal with all of that. And that can really take a toll on us because we're constantly running like hamsters in a wheel. Not all of us. Some of us are blessed to not have to do that. Chiron is on the table set for an evening meal, and that is the 20th degree of Pisces. And so the table set for an evening meal can be like, oh, do we have food in the fridge? Do we need to go to the supermarket? Have we got money in the purse? Have we got food stamps? Some people are living on food stamps. Some people have no supermarket. Some people have no running water. Anyway, we know all that. It's just that Chiron on the table set for an evening meal can really bring up our very individual needs in terms of, you know, how we can support ourselves, or, you know, pay for the family to eat. And of course, paying for the family to eat includes all those other things, all those other payments, because if you know, you don't pay your gas bill, your gas stove's not going to operate. So it's a bit of an interesting one, because that is, you know, it's pushing us a little bit. That Chiron is saying, oh, come on, come on. But there are many lessons to be learned through Chiron, and so we have to listen to the stories that come up through Chiron, you know, through the agency of Chiron. Chiron's going to go back onto the master instructing his disciple, which is Pisces 19, and that's a whole other story. I'll get to some of that at another time. This is already getting to be rather too long and people lose their concentration. But, you know, another thing I want to point out in this chart is that Pluto is on the ancient bas-relief carved in granite that remains a witness to a long-forgotten culture. And this is where I could have a rant, or try not to, whereas ISIS or ISIL or Daesh or the death cult or whoever the hell they are rampaging through Syria, you know, have obliterated Palmyra. Well, the antiquities. And killed a lot of people. And anyway, I won't go on about that, but just really interesting to note this. And very, it feels very, it really hurts my heart to see that stuff go. It hurts my heart to see people die more than antiquities disappearing. Totally. But, you know, we're having both. And, you know, and even killing that lovely man who looked after the antiquities of Palmyra, 82-year-old antiquarian who had his, you know, he was murdered. So, you know, the ancient bas-relief carved in granite that remains a witness to a long-forgotten culture. For goodness sake, that place stood for 2,000 years, and Pluto sits on that degree in Capricorn and obliterates that place. It obliterated the what else has been obliterated recently? Well, cities everywhere, people everywhere, all sorts of things. I know there's other things that just got wiped out. I don't want to really go there. Well, I certainly did go to Syria. I went to Syria in 1976, and we were camping out. We camped at Palmyra. I slept in a tent in the winter in Palmyra. I also slept within the walls of Persepolis in Iran. It was amazing. in a tent. I also slept in the treasury in Petra. And why I'm bringing all this up is because the ancient bas-relief carved in granite remains a witness to a long-forgotten culture with Pluto there. You know, Pluto is retrograding over that degree, and it's giving us a second look at some of these things that we had that, you know, what is written in stone in our life? What is something that is really, that we've witnessed that remains a story in our lives that, you know, becomes part of who we are, for better or for ill. And it's interesting also that Uranus was square this, you know, 14 degrees of Capricorn degree for quite some time. It was sat on it for ages. And the square that Uranus was coming from was the 14th degree of Aries. And the Sabian symbol for that is the serpent coiling near a man and a woman in the Garden of Eden. And I kid you not. I mean, that is so Middle East. It is so, you know, Muslim, Christian, Jewish, Jerusalem, Israel, all of that stuff. It was all, you know, together with that, you know, where Uranus was on the 14th degree of Aries, which it was for ages, months, on the serpent coiling between a man and a woman, squaring the ancient bas-relief, Pluto on the ancient bas-relief. They were both at 14. Now, of course, Uranus has moved right off, but we still have Pluto traversing those degrees where those squares were happening. And so I think that there's a lot of erasing of the past that's going on, and I think that's part of our ascension in consciousness. It's like, you know, grab hold of those things that are really worth it to you to take into the future. You know, take hold of those things. By the way, I just got to say this, even though I'm sure a few people won't like me for saying it. I think, and I don't know whether it's got anything to do with Daesh, although who knows what's going on there, or ISIL or ISIS. But you know, when they looted the Iraqi museum in Baghdad. And took everything out of that gorgeous museum, which I visited in 1976. I just knew as I watched that, you know, that was orchestrated by a lot of money. Those antiquities are worth billions of dollars. They're worth more than the oil that whole thing was said to be about. So to me, that was orchestrated by the West, or certainly for the West. So it's an interesting one, that one. Anyway, don't have to go on about that. But, you know, and in fact, it is about letting go of the past where things don't work for you. It is about, you know, stepping up and stepping out and stepping above things and not letting things get to us. But, you know, there still certainly are things that will get to us. You know, this is a huge full moon. The full moon is in, you know, Pisces. It's conjunct Neptune. The sun is in Virgo, conjunct Jupiter. That's huge. It's huge. And, you know, Jupiter and Neptune are opposite each other in amongst all of that. And Jupiter and Neptune being in an opposition, they're moving towards each other as well. That can really bring a sense of an ascension too. You know, ascension's a bit of a weird word, and I think it gets bandied around a bit. But what Jupiter and Neptune wants is it wants to have a nice, clean slate of loveliness, you know, like with all the pastel colors and everything looking nice and a bit spiritual, well, quite spiritual, creative, and, you know, not watching the terrible news and all that, not indulging on all bad stories. It wants a better story. It wants charity. For others, mostly. It's a giving, you know. I mean, of course, it doesn't hurt to have charity at home. Doesn't hurt at all. But, you know, it's very much about, you know, like the caring and the sharing and the sharing with others, and the feeling of others' pain can be part of that thing. But the feeling of others' joy and the sharing of what it is to be human, I think, is what this one is about. But, you know, the large cross lying on rocks surrounded by sea and mist is the degree of the full moon. That's a heavy one. But it can be where we go, okay, I'm no longer going to misplace my loyalties. I'm gonna one by one, or all at once, or in a split second, because it is the dawn of a new day, revealing everything changed through the agency of Mercury. Let everything go. Just where we just go, you know. I mean, we're not letting everything go. You know, those things that are important and meaningful to us. Of course, we have to keep them in our lives. I don't mean that. It's a time of going, I'm not going to worry about that thing. And sometimes these things, like, for instance, what happened in Syria, you know, that passes through my mind and it makes me go, oh, blip. You know, it's like you know, and then I go, yeah, all right. Because why? What, you know, me getting upset about it. Although, you know, I still have to learn not to rant quite as much about the things that bother me, about the government and about the way they're treating people. It's hard not to be a political person in a political world. But that is part of what's being asked for, or at least to raise our politics one level. You know, we can still be involved in that and watch that and care about that, but not have it wreck our lives. And I think that's what I'm mostly saying here. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed that. And and I intend to make more of those. And I think the sun came out while I was doing that. Anyway, I wish you all the best. Bye.